Objectives of system design. First is practicality. What is practicality? So we need a system that should be targeting the set of users corresponding to which they are designing. Okay, so that is practicality. Like what practically we need, what is the requirement of the user, what the audience are targeting about. Okay, that we should design. If the design is irrelevant to the audience, what is the use of that? That is why being practical, looking for the practicality, is very important and a main objectives of system design. All right, everyone. Second is very important, accuracy. What is accuracy? So, above system design should be designed in such a way that it fulfills nearly all requirements around which it is designed to be, okay, functional or non-functional requirements. So it should be that accurate that it should fulfill all the requirement, whether it is functional requirement, whether it is non-functional requirement, it should be designed in that way. So practicality is the first one, that it should be relevant to the audience. After that, the accuracy should be there. So if we have designed a system, that it should fulfill all the requirements which we are looking for. Okay, the third is completeness. So system design should also meet all user requirements. So it should be a completely well fulfilling requirement design or a system, I can say, right? The fourth one is efficient. So let's say if a system is designed, it is completing all the requirements, but it is not efficient. Okay, whatever the result I want, I am getting, it is taking so much time, it is not efficient. What is the use of that, right? So that is why the system design should be such a way that it should not overuse, surpassing the cost of resources, or nor underuse at it will be by now. So we should know what will be the result in low throughput and less response time. All right, and low throughput is also the output, we can say, and less response time is nothing but the latency. So these are the things. Now the fifth one is relatably. So reliability. What is reliability? That a system design should be in approximately to be a failure free environment for a certain period of time. That is reliability. Okay, so reliability is nothing but it is ensuring consistent performance and minimum failure. So it is a consistent performer and minimum failure should be there. That is reliability in system design. In a short way, this you can take. Okay, the sixth one is optimization. Optimization. Okay, so time and space are just likely. So see, we want the time and space, so it should optimize the time and space. So whatever the chunks of code we are writing for an individual component to work in a system, so it should be good in time and space as well. Okay, the seventh one is scalable. And what is scalable? That it is, in simple word, you can understand that it is flexible. I'm writing here flexible. Okay, scalable means nothing but flexible. So system design should be adaptable with time as per different user needs of customers, which we know. Okay, and which will be we will be knowing in the change of time. So the best example we can take here is Nokia. Everyone has used. So it is one of the most aspects while designing system, and is the result of why one out of 100 startups succeed to the long run. Okay, why? Because they know the requirement. So however the time is changing, it is changing. Nokia didn't change the Nokia didn't change itself as the user requirement or the changing of time, so it failed. Okay, but if we are changing the aspects, we are changing the design as per the time or as per the requirement of user, the startup will work, anything will work. All right, everyone, so you can just go through the point. Done, everyone, with this? So I think the objectives of system design are very well clear to you all. So there are total four, total there are seven objectives. Okay, and one more thing is why system designing is very very important, because it also helps us to achieve fault tolerance, which is ability of a software to continue working where even its one or two component fail. Okay, so it's the ability to achieve the fault tolerance. So this is also one of the main important thing. So we have seen all the glance of the objectives, okay? And let's understand even more closure with the advantages, and let's see how it is implemented in our real life, the system design. All right, everyone. So please note this one time. Okay, so everyone has just seen it. Okay, let's understand now the advantages of system design. Okay, so one great advantage of system design is that it has it has created awareness and creativity in all the full stack developers via bonding of API protocols and gateways, networking and databases. Okay, but let's understand some major think about that. Okay, let's understand some major advantages of system design. All right. So till that you can also answer one by one in the chat. I am answering, okay? And after that we will discuss. So answer me one by one in the chat box. What are the important advantages do you feel of having a system design? Okay, so very good, everyone. Yeah, now let's discuss one by one. So, the first thing is it reduces the designing cost of a product. Okay, so reduces the design cost of a product. What this means? So if you will establish a design pattern, and if you will reusable components, so teams can lower the effort and expenses associated with creating a new software design. So we can reuse that. Okay, all the design, all the established design patterns we have, we can reuse the component, so it will lower the efforts of the team, and also it will lower the expense associated with that for creating a new software design. So that is why it reduces the of designing cost of a product. So this is a very very important point. Okay, second is speedy software development process. So speedy software development process, what it means, that by using of frameworks and libraries, we can accelerate development by providing pre-built functions. We can allow developers to focus on unique feature. So basically we can provide some pre-built functions which can be used by the developers. Okay, some unique feature. So that is why it is speedy software development process. Okay, and how it will be built? By using frameworks and libraries. Okay, and which will accelerate our development. Okay, if we will provide a very nice and unique features to our development developers. So this is the second point. Third is saves overall time in SDLC. What is SDLC? System Development Life Cycle. Okay, system soft or not system, software development life cycle is called as SDLC. Okay, so this processes and automate the SDL cycle, which leads to quicker iteration, and it makes faster time to market. Okay, so the name itself says that saves overall time in SDL. Okay, fourth is increases efficiency and consistency of a programmer. So, if you will have some familiar tools and methodologies which will enable programmers to work more on efficiency, okay, and it will work effectively also, and will produce some uniform code which will reduce whatever the errors we used to have, that errors it will reduce. Okay, so that is why the point is increases efficiency and consistency of a programmer. Why? Because if we will use the tools which are familiar to us and the methods, so what will happen, that we will, whatever the errors we used to have earlier, that will be reduced. Okay, and the fifth important point is it saves the resources. Fifth is saves resources. So it optimizes workflows, and shared resources minimize the need of efforts. That's why conserving both human and material resources it does. Okay, so because it uses whatever, it uses the recyclable use products, right? So whatever is earlier that it uses, so in the first point also we have seen that it reuses the components. So it is good. Why? Because it will reduce the efforts, and it will also conserve the human and material resources. All right, everyone. So I hope the main advantages of having a system design you all know. Now let's understand what are the components of system design. Okay, so let's discuss this in brief. Components of system design. So what are the components? Very first is load balancers. Very first is load balancer. So what is load balancer? First thing, so it distributes whatever is the incoming traffic across multiple servers, okay, to optimize the performance and ensure reliability. Okay, so it distributes the incoming traffic across multiple servers to optimize performance and ensures reliability. Okay, the second is key value stores. Key value stores. So whatever are the storage systems which manages data, okay, and how they manages it as a pair of key and value. So whatever is the data, it will have a key and it will have a value. Okay, something if you have seen in the hash table, okay, in the hash table how we implement everything, it is in the form of keys and values. That is the same thing here which we are learning, keys and value. Okay, so storage system that manage data as a pairs of keys and values. Keys and value. And it often implements hash tables. Okay, often implemented using distributed hash tables. All right, everyone. So please note all these points. Very, very important. All right, everyone. Done with this. Okay, let's understand the next is, which is block storage. Block storage. So this is the storage where we are storing some large amount of unstructured data. Okay, we can say that some media files is there, right? For example, we can see YouTube and Netflix. Okay, so there is some unstructured data is there, right? Yes. So let's write this: a service of storing large amounts of unstructured data, such as media files. Okay, so YouTube and Netflix, you can see that they are completely unstructured data, and a large amount of data is stored in that. So this is called as a block storage, right? And databases. So in computer science, we have a complete one subject on this, which is database management system, how to manage a data. Because for now, the data is very, very important. Okay. The value of data is there. The value, whoever has the data, that person is very, very rich. Okay. So today, this is the thing. So organized, this is nothing but organized collections of data which provides us easy access, management, and modifications. Okay, so we can easily access the data, we can manage the data, and we can do modification if it is needed. So, organized collections of data that facilitate easy access, management, and modification. Okay, so please see this one time. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Now, the fifth one is rate limiters. So you know who provides the overloading in a system? It is a rate limiters. Okay, what it does, it controls the maximum number of requests which is coming by a service. Okay, so it provides a service to all this request, and it handles in such a way that it will prevent the overload in the system. Okay, so this is the rate limiters control the maximum number of requests a service can handle in a given time frame to prevent overload, to prevent the overload, right? Sixth is monitoring systems. So monitoring system is what? So there are some tools which enables administration to track and analyze the infrastructure performance, we can say, which includes the bandwidth and CPU usage. Okay, so that is the monitoring system says. Tools that enable administrators to track and analyze infrastructure performance, okay, including bandwidth and CPU usage. Bandwidth and CPU usage. So answer this, everyone. Done with this? Okay. Now let's understand some distributed messaging queues. How it happens. Okay. So that is the next one. Seventh, which is distributed messaging queues. Distributed messaging queues. So this is nothing but a medium which provides the communication between producers and consumers. Okay, and it enables some reliable message delivery. So this is nothing but a communication medium. Distributed messaging queue is nothing but a communication medium which provides the facility of communication between the producers and the consumers. Okay, and ensuring some message reliable, so message delivery it ensures. Okay,